Welcome back to Incremental, the continuous improvement podcast. This is episode 111. This is our practice edition where we go through lean improvements we made throughout the week and tie them back to lean principles. I'm Uriel Eisen of Austere Manufacturing.
And I'm Devin Bedoni of Like and Precision. And our quote for the week: "A corporation is a living organism. It has to continue to shed its skin. Methods have to change. Focus has to change. Values have to change. The sum total of those changes is transformation." From Andrew Grove.
Another reminder that even once you've solved problems, they will need to be revisited.
Yeah. This kind of harkens back to the discussion of Toyota's kind of like core the like reason for existence, right? Is survival and kind of treating it as an organism.
Yeah.
And that like you kind of wonder if like Toyota has it at the, like, whatever people high up execs have it at the forefront of their mind that like maybe even making cars is not what they would do if things changed enough. Whereas
Right.
I feel like most people in most companies don't have that sort of awareness at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've kind of struggled with that myself, like contemplating different like product ideas or businesses to pursue, and just been like, well, that'd be hard to machine, so I'm not going to do that. And then being like, I don't need to run a machine shop, right? Like I'm running a business. If it makes sense to do it with machine tools, great. If not, let's like buy the thing we need.
Totally.
But sometimes I'm like, well, I like machining, and machining's what I do well, so let's keep machining.
Yeah, and I think both are true.
Both are true. I think
Yeah.
it's fine to say I'm going to be a machine shop.
Right.
I'm going to excel at being a machine shop.
Well, that's fine for you.
Yeah.
If you decided to be like a focus on 100 years, then it might become less fine.
True.
Right? It might be fine to say we are a business that facilitates like creating mechanical components or something.
Uh-huh.
But like, what if machining becomes I can't imagine it's going to go away, right, with additive machine or additive processes like 3D printing, but I could imagine that taking a section, an amount of the work, or some revolution in like EDM or electronic dance music. There's a lot of room, I think, for.
I mean, we're already starting to see this, right, with our like anodizing foray,
right?
And we're starting to do more assembly as we get requests for that for customers. And right now, it's kind of like, well, we're not doing that to make money necessarily. We're doing that to allow us to take jobs that we wouldn't otherwise take, or streamline other aspects of our internal process. But there's no reason why those couldn't become standalone businesses, or even a central part of the business, or a spin-off business, or whatever, if the demand was there and we were willing to like engage,
put some dollars into it. Yeah. I've been thinking about it. Like we're suddenly reaching this point where I've started noticing more examples of things we haven't re-examined, because for all of Austere's history, we've been like a brand new company.
Yeah.
And only now are we reaching the point where, I mean, we're still relatively new at like 3 years or something, but we're starting to see things like assumptions that we made back then, which were correct, are becoming not correct. We this is a very small example, but a real example. We ran out of stock this week. And I just realized I haven't resized those Kanban loops in 3 years. Yeah. Right. And like early, they were sort of like, let's just get a lot because we don't want to bother our vendors. I mean, a lot to us.
Right. You wanted to meet minimums more or less.
Yeah. Like each order, we should just be able to place the order without having to goof around. And now we're just producing a lot more. So those don't work anymore. And just a lot of other things like that. And similar to what you're saying, I was kind of like, it's so easy for the inertia of a business to overcome the need to continuously improve, but not just like the stuff this podcast is about.
Yeah.
But also just like, is your product now obsolete and you're going to have some company come in who can do the same thing better and cheaper?
Right.
Because you've been so caught up in all the very real problems of running a day-to-day business, right? Like,
yeah.
I don't know. There's no shortage of things to spend your time on that have very little to do with innovating in the product.
Yeah.
Especially, I think, well, maybe always, but I would think especially when you're small, especially when it's sort of a choice between doing that and a different core business function.
Yeah. Yeah. I've sort of been thinking about kind of what my role will look like if I were to transition out of daily operations.
Mm-hmm.
And I have these moments sometimes where I'm like, I look around the shop and I'm like, I don't know what I would do. And then I like take one step back and I'm like, oh yeah, someone's got to strategize and steer this ship and make sure that we're actually like producing or providing a service that somebody wants.
Yeah. A bunch of people. Yeah. 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 Improvements?
Yeah. Like I said, I was gone, so I don't have a lot.
Yeah.
We added more tool pots to our tool storage rack.
Oh, cool.
If everybody remembers that.
It's the French cleat movable system. Is that working pretty well?
It's working very well. Yeah. Well, I think it is. I don't use it on a daily basis personally, but from the outside, that rack along with our new tool carts, sort of a kind of a combined system, appears to be functioning quite well. There was some early friction, which is why we added more tool pots, where tools weren't getting returned to the rack because there was space constraints.
Oh, yeah.
So we didn't have enough empty spots. So it ended up sort of being this funny juggle. And then initially we kind of populated everything. It's like a A-frame sort of style rack. So you can put stuff on either side of the A. Initially we kind of populated everything to one side because it didn't seem like that many tools. But what that kind of resulted in was that each row was pretty full. And so there wasn't always a lot of space to fill something in. So we spread it all out to both sides, and came up with a very loose SOP for kind of keeping it a little less visually cluttered, where now we like slide all of the full ones to hard against the left side. And then we have all the empties on the right. And it just makes it a little bit less of like this weird mishmash.
Interesting.
I'm not sure if that's going to stick. When we first talked about it, it was like there's potential issues to a bunch of different ways of aligning it, but this was just like simple. So I suggested it and it appears to still be happening. So it must not be that bad.
Yeah. Nice.
But yeah, I think and then kind of just, this wasn't on the list, but the setup cart has been very cool.
What have you noticed?
What I notice is that there's a setup cart at each machine generally before a job is done with all of the tools.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And I think it's kind of funny, like when you envision something like this, you're like, okay, there's like whatever 21 tool holders on top. You envision it being like very full. Oftentimes it's like 3 to 5 tools and it looks random because they're in the numbered pots that match.
Man, that must be really awesome.
I think I haven't actually done one of these setups yet, but it seems like I think it's pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're not using it a ton for stock, but also for like transporting stock.
Okay.
I think that's fine. We'll see how things go. And we also probably made more of them than we actually need.
But why not using it for stock?
I'm not sure. I just noticed that I don't often see it on there.
Interesting.
Yeah. I think partially just the kind of the timing flow of when tools need to arrive somewhere versus when stock needs to arrive somewhere. It seems like stock often arrives at the machine kind of later in the process.
Gotcha.
Versus, in my in my head, this theoretical like perfect system is like, there's a cart here and you populate it with tools and then you populate it with this and then it goes over. And I think it's more often like operator, setup people get all the tools ready, move it to the machine. They're busy sawing other stuff for stuff that's in process or whatever. When the sawing happens, they bring it over. It seems like.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. It's also been a goal of mine recently to kind of maybe get a little more engaged in daily ops stuff, in part to be more involved in improving and just like being in touch with the processes, and also just to keep my mind entertained, because the daily like treadmill of admin and programming is starting to feel like a treadmill.
Yeah, it's interesting what people start a business for relative to what it turns out to be.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's a bit of a mismatch.
It's
probably all the time, actually. It just depends if you're able to kind of manage it enough.
Probably. Yeah. I think so.
I mean, I think at some point the interest becomes like running a successful business, and so you'll sort of put up with stuff for a while.
Yeah.
I'm
getting moving there, but also I think I need some kind of stuff with my hands to... Yeah.
Right there with you. So let's see. This is a really dumb example, but
wait, did you skip the top one?
Good improvement. No, we're doing it. So there's a concept from Shizio Shingo: set, don't adjust. So anytime you're sort of guess and checking, create some method so you can just set. So I was trimming my beard and realizing that I was guess and check, right? You trim a bit, you look at it, you trim a bit more. And so in the spirit of continuous improvement, I have a bag of guides, which I never use. I pulled them out and picked, because I'm just going to do a recipe, right? It's like, do this number here, this number there. This is definitely not the first time this has happened. Like, this is standard hair cutting, I think.
The guides are there for a reason.
Yeah. So I implemented the guides. Not to great effect.
Really?
I picked the wrong numbers.
Oh, gotcha.
But without standards, there's no improvement. And now I have a standard, and so I know what to do. I wanted the middle to be longer.
Interesting.
Yeah. So
I do have a recipe, but it's all pretty short, so it's pretty simple. Yeah.
I have a recipe for the top.
Just enjoying for the top of your head.
Yeah, it's just shave it all off. Anyway, so that was one. Hopefully it just saves a little time. And part of the reason I put off trimming my beard, I think, is because it's too like, it's like a bit of a process, not a process, but it's like,
yeah, no, I get
you have
that.
to like pay attention, and
yeah.
Someone's like, I'll do it tomorrow.
We just moved into a new house. This house that we've been building that people have probably heard about.
Very exciting.
Very exciting. And similarly, many things, many daily life things that most people take for granted have become much less of a process. So they're happening more, and it's great.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, like showering. It's
because in the tiny house,
it was just like super cramped, and like, you're in people's way. And it was also, there was we had like an on-demand hot water heater that was propane, so there was an ever-present threat of
running out in the middle
of running out of hot water.
Ooh, yeah,
which is a real downer.
That is a downer.
Yeah, it's nothing like specific I could put my finger on, like that was the one thing, but now it's just easier, and it just happens more. Yeah,
something I just to put a pin in sort of is like, I've been trying to be more attentive to things that don't happen, and then instead of being like, oh man, I gotta be better about doing them, just like looking at it and being like, what about this do I not like, and can I fix that?
Yeah.
And also, and this is like just like task, to-do list creation 101, but somehow I still need a reminder from time to time. And I was just reading about like setting good goals and stuff like that. Was just like, if any task on there is sort of like too big to be immediately actionable, you should break it down. And I just feel like lately I've
like in duration or
just into a subtask. Yeah. Like I remember in high school when I was working like really late into the night, I built a bunch of stuff. That was, and as you get tired, I found that I had to sort of take each task and then break it down into like
chunk it.
Okay, go get the wood. Like, okay, take a measurement, right? Like, mark it, cut it, test fit, whatever.
Right.
And if I did break it out like that, it was very easy to keep working. And if I didn't, it became sort of overwhelming cognitively. And then you're like, I'll figure it all out tomorrow. Yeah. And so similarly, I think it's easy in the business to set these big goals and you're like, that's a great goal.
Yeah.
But then to not break it into little things that, like, if you have a spare half hour, you can kind of knock one of them off and feel like you moved the needle because you have it broken out. Instead, you're just like looking at this huge task in the face and it just sits there. So
yeah, totally.
Anyway, trimming the beard now is easier.
Let's see here. I finally rearranged our tool setup station slightly. So I think I've talked about this before. It was like, I think I talked about it as something that continued to not happen.
Okay.
It used to be where you were swapping a tool in a tool holder. You had to stand in front of the drawers of the tool bench.
Yeah.
So I finally moved that to the side so you can stand to the side when you're changing a tool. And then also we had all of the standard tools like wrenches and stuff for doing that process in the top drawer. So you would often, and that cabinet doesn't allow you to open more than one drawer at a time. So someone would be getting a tool out. You'd have to wait for them to close it, open the drawer. Anyway, so I put those on a shadow board on the side of the bench. So
nice.
There's no interference with access.
That's a great improvement. We got sent 2 extra boxes of 4x6 labels. And in a past life, like 3 months ago, I would have just stuck them on the shelf because they're not a lot of money. But instead I just returned them.
Wow, look at you.
To just have one box on the shelf because there's room for it and the rest of the shelf is allocated to other things.
Nice.
So that was nice.
So impressive.
Oh yeah. Impressed myself.
Let's see here. Finally got our Fusion Airtable tool library sync.
Oh, cool.
Pointed at the tool library and Airtable that we actually use. So we've had it like test running.
Oh.
So
now it's live.
Now it's live.
Yeah, automation is frightening.
Yeah. Which now we can kind of start to actually enact a bunch of the kind of downstream aspects of the process.
Okay.
That have just sort of been hanging. So like setting up a workflow for properly receiving new tools and stuff, which is still a bit of like, hey, I ordered that thing. It's going to show up tomorrow. It's in the library, but there's no card.
Gotcha.
Blah, blah, blah.
Interesting.
So, yes.
By the way, on the topic of cards, because you're using the business cards, Arda, the business card size.
Yes.
So I just tested out and it worked very nicely. If you're printing on 3x5 index cards, you can just set the size of those cards. So all your tool related cards, if you set the card size to, I think it's, I forget what the business card size is, like 3 by 2.5 by 3 or something like that.
Yeah. Then
you can just hit print and it just prints out on the top of the card and then you just take a pair of scissors and cut it off. So I've been doing quite a bit of that. And you don't have to like change the paper size or like bulk print in batches of 10. I don't know. It's just like easy enough and it's standardized and so that's been good.
Nice.
In case you need to add more cards.
All right.
So we have the loft is pretty low. It was driven by like the headspace when you're in the loft is kind of low. It was driven by clearance below.
Yeah.
And we had the lights hung from the ceiling sort of perpendicular to the direction you walked. And they protruded like an extra 1.5-inch from the ceiling. And it's an angled ceiling. So walking in one part, that's fine for me anyway. Probably too short for you. But walking slightly down, you could whack your head into the lights. So I just turned them 90 degrees. And I put them in a place that lights the counter space nicely. So it's just like running parallel.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Right on.
After whacking my head. So, yeah.
Just once though, right?
For sure.
So on the topic of printing, we ordered 2 duplicate new printers.
Oh, nice.
We were like, we need another printer that we're going to keep dedicated to cards because the switch back and forth is annoyingly frictionful.
Yep.
And so we were like trying to find a printer that would use the same ink as the one we already have, but it was like old. And then the new ones that use that ink, people are like, this printer sucks. And so finally we were like, what? This is a silly constraint to be optimizing around like an 8-year-old printer
that you didn't even like get with this in mind at all.
No, that we don't even like. It's like terrible.
Yeah.
So we ordered 2 new duplicate printers to standardize.
What did you go with?
Ink type. That one that you suggested,
cool.
Canon.
Yeah. Nice.
And yeah, we'll keep one set up with normal paper for, general
That's
purpose.
Inspiring. I might do the same thing.
General purpose stuff. And also we need to really kind of start dialing in our inspection area.
On that topic.
Printing out inspection reports.
Oh, cool.
To fill in as you inspect a part. That's a side note.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, we'll have 2 of them. One with normal paper, one with not.
You should check out Google Forms.
Yes.
Because it might make sense to fill those in, or maybe something through Airtable.
Well, it's usually what we're printing out is the actual PDF of the print from the customer that has like all of the... So...
And then you'd scan it in to have a digital record?
This is my next...
Oh, cool. Wow.
But it's not fully formed. Right now, I'm just like taking a photo of it.
Yeah, that's...
Yeah. But
a scan, sort of.
Yeah.
Nice.
There's also softwares called ballooning software. So like the typical way this is done.
Oh, ballooning in that sense.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Is like you have your PDF provided by the customer.
Yep.
And then you like have all these little balloons that you take, like you'll mark up their print with a line from each dimension to a little balloon, like a little circle with a number. Each one of those numbers then correlates to a table that you fill out with the actual inspection result, how it was done, blah, blah, blah. So there's whole softwares that do that. I don't know, maybe they're good. I haven't heard much good about any of them so far.
I would guess you can build something in Airtable or just
honestly right now we
photo.
Just do it. We just write on the actual thing and then take a photo.
Nice.
I figured that's much more of a record than none.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, printer.
We now have Arda cards on all of our paint with a visual control, so an image of the color, which seems really stupid. It is awesome. Like every time, it's funny. I didn't really notice. I kind of did it because like we built Arda, like we better like eat the dog food,
right?
And it's been on my list for a long time to have cards associated with the paint. And actually, I had made Kanban cards for them. One of the first things at Kanban, and it was so marginally useful without any sort of like aggregation function.
What do you mean?
Like it was just it was a card, just a physical card. But then I didn't really build enough infrastructure to where it would stay with the bottle nicely.
Oh,
and then also it wasn't significantly useful, and so like I just got lazy about the whole thing. And so with Arda, it was sort of more juice to squeeze, kind of, because anyway. So, and then the visual control is interesting. In having it now, I realize every single time I go to put the paint bottle back on the shelf, I'm looking at the labels to figure out where to put it. Because it's just really easy to match the color instead of like, I don't really know how I was doing it before. I was kind of remembering like where they all sit, I guess.
Yeah.
And looking for blank spots. Yeah.
Interesting. So yeah, I, as mentioned, added an inspection report attachment field to our work order table in Airtable. So there's actually a place to put that photo, or it could be a scan, or it could be whatever. This is part of a sort of rethinking a lot of just roles. I think we went over this on the podcast several weeks ago, how we had a meeting and we kind of like reworked what everybody's tasks were and their priorities levels and stuff. And in thinking through that, I think I personally am going to start taking over inspection
Oh, cool.
So right now that's sort of been part of the setup task is inspecting the first part. But I think keeping the primary setup person available to keep doing setups is better for throughput. Simultaneously, me as the programmer having some kind of feedback loop for what's actually coming off these machines, like
with what you programmed.
With what I programmed is pretty key, and I'm usually doing most of the edits, so it's kind of pretty straightforward.
So you can inspect it, make an edit, bring it back to the machine.
Exactly.
And
learn, and then also be involved in improving the whole inspection process.
Yeah.
And this is leading up to us probably buying a CMM soon, but in prep for that, I want to start kind of getting my head back in that game.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I've been hard at work adding Arda cards all over the shop.
Nice.
So that was a nice improvement. Every single one I do, it's just like a item off of the mental list that I didn't really realize was there.
Yeah.
You know, you're just like, oh wow, now I never need to worry about that again.
Yeah.
I spent, this is embarrassing but true. I spent about 2 hours, maybe more, adding cards to our production tools. We have 20 production tools. Most of them were super easy, right? And then there were like 4 that I could not figure out where I bought them. Because we're running in aluminum, they're carbide, they barely do any cutting.
Yeah.
And so it's been, a year and a half, and I'm like,
oh wow,
digging through this and that. And at the time I bought 3 because they were a production tool.
Yeah.
And so now we're sort of down, and I'm like, where did I get this? And
it can be miraculous. When we did our tooling update, it was a weeks long process.
Yeah. So it's really nice to just, and then when that thing when you're sort of like, oh, I should order more, it's such a big task that you don't do it. And so it's nice to just have it done. And luckily this is preemptive, which is kind of awesome. We're not like, oh, the machine's down because we don't have a part. So that's good. I painted a big portion of our shop. Been doing a bunch of paint. Because
you're just a painter through and through these days.
Man, do a lot of painting. Paint the walls, paint the buckles. So did that. Really improved the lighting in the shop and just like the visual clarity. Like, I don't know.
It's OSB before?
It was plywood, but unpainted.
Yeah.
So that was really nice. What else? Put lighting on shelves, which was kind of silly,
nice.
But now that I did it, I'm like, this is great.
It's a pro move.
It's so nice.
We do not have it. But
yeah.
I know.
I have it on one shelf now, and now hopefully on others. I fixed an air leak it's one of those things where every time I notice it is when the shop is pressurized.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, tomorrow. And then I get in tomorrow, instantly flip on the compressor.
Yep.
Then walk by the leak again sometime later in the day. Anyway, so I finally fixed it. That was great. Made some updates to our gripper fingers, which has been on my list for a long time. We had a failure and a crash due to, I think, damage to the original fingers, which were aluminum, which was just like enough work to make new ones that I always sort of just like filed off.
Yep.
Boo-boos.
Yep.
And so I redesigned them to be 3D printable in CF reinforced PETG, which we've found to be very good in coolant. I 3D printed in some 1/8 inch bores that you can just press fit pins into, stainless steel pins, to reinforce those aspects. And then I also, and this has been on my list for a long time, made barbs in where the bolts go that hold it to the gripper. So it's captive hardware, so they don't fall out.
Oh.
So now you just sort of press them in there and they clip in.
Nice.
So that's
slick.
Very nice, because every time we took them off, often a screw would fall out, and then you're like around on the floor getting it. And then let's see. I heard I forget the brand, but there's some brand of garbage bag maker that rolls a note into the roll. So when you're close to the end, there's just like basically a Kanban.
Yeah.
a trigger, a signal. I thought that was clever. I forget which company.
So did you do it to your own?
No, I just thought it was cool.
Oh, yeah.
No, we just have a box with a Kanban card.
Yeah.
And then Sam has really been on a tear of improvements, which has been really fun to watch.
Nice.
He built out we're finally implementing like a QC station.
Yeah.
Where items that come out of the mill, instead of like going to degrease, there's now a new step, which has always been there theoretically, which is QC. And so we always do essentially a visual check.
Yeah.
But this is going to be a designated station where we check the parts, and he built out some Google slideshows with photos of how to inspect each part.
Oh, cool.
Which is really nice.
And do you have inspection tooling there?
We're working on that. Yes. Right now it's a caliper. We really want to do like go, no-go gauges.
Yeah.
But haven't worked out how we want to implement that. Like for pins, I think there's tools, but I'm sure there's tools for different.
For bores, you mean?
Like I've seen like pin gauge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just get a little holder for some gauge pins.
Yeah. And it's like two-sided. One is green and one is red.
Yeah.
So I've seen those. I'd love to do some other go, no-go stuff.
Uh-huh.
I was sort of thinking maybe 3D printed with like hardened elements that are sort of like adjustable one time. And you set them, and I don't know. I'm trying to figure out if you have any good ideas.
Well, I think.
Or bad ideas.
I think there's many ways to do it.
Yeah.
Probably there's much more clever ones, but I mean, you can machine them, obviously. Mm-hmm. And for what you're doing, just machining out of aluminum would probably last a long time.
Mm.
It kind of depends on the feature and what kind of accuracy you're trying to maintain. Also, it's good to remember that you can use pins to measure a lot of things that are not round, because they are also just a length measurement. If you like stick it in a slot.
Internal diameter?
Like say you have a slot width, you can use a pin to check a slot width, or any kind of a dimension between two things that is a hard stop. So you could probably measure quite a few things on the buckles with pins as go, no go gauges if they're just ID features.
That's a good point. Right. And then because it's circular, like orientation doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That's
I mean, within reason.
Yeah. And then bulk cut webbing was another improvement, but we talked about that last episode. So
that's super cool.
Anyway.
Nice.
We're back at it.
Hopefully
fewer interruptions on our podcast.
Indeed. You're not going anywhere, are you? Ever?
We have to figure that out.
I'm not going on a vacation for at least another 5 years, so we're safe.
Nice. Yeah, quite a bit of travel coming up, so
yeah, we'll figure it out.
We will. Thanks all for listening. It's super awesome doing this podcast, meeting a lot of interesting people who know so much about all this stuff. Why people listen to us, very mysterious, but here we are. You can find the podcast at Incremental CI on Instagram. Please drop us a line. We always love hearing from people. You can find me at austere_manufacturing on Instagram and austeremfg.com on the internet, and arda.cards on the internet and on Instagram.
You can find me at lichen_mfg on Instagram, lichenprecision.com on the internet. And we have a Patreon.
Please check it out. The link is in the description.
We'll talk to you soon.